much all the billionaire Jews have an account with his law firm in Australia. He's also the chairman of the Australia-Israel. Wait a second, I'm trying to remember the name of this. So many organizations.
But this guy plays a big role in what exactly? Like, in essence, who is this guy, and what does his presence entail to Australians? What does it mean to Australians?
Yeah. So he's one of the main leaders in the Zionist lobby. He used to be. I mean, the list of organizations that he's been a part of are extensive. But he is the chair of the most influential Zionist lobbyist group in Australia, and he's been engaging in Zionist lobbying for decades, for like 40 plus years, and has had close personal relationships with every Australian prime minister during that time. The way that he kind of developed that influence, though, was through working basically as a tax dodging lawyer. So billionaires would come to him, and he would craft ways for them to dodge taxes, basically. And then once the government in the 80s started passing laws that would basically mess up his tax dodging schemes, that he helped all these wealthy Jewish Australians to avoid paying tax. Then he realized he had to get into political lobbying, so that he could ensure that he can protect his clients. And so he did, and used his kind of extensive personal contacts in order to pull that off. And also he's a massive power broker. There's a book written about him called Power Broker, which kind of details his influence over Australian politics over the past 40 plus years. Him and his brother. His brother was a big influence before he went back to Israel. But Liebler himself is the most powerful Jew probably in Australia today in terms of political influence. Now, what's interesting is that not only is he this massive Zionist who, just supports everything, the most extreme policies of the state of Israel, everything Israel does is good, tolerates zero criticism, demands total support of the Australian government, demands all of Australian Jewry support the cause of Zionism, and is this very aggressive kind of, Jewish power broker. At the same time, he is also, on social issues, a massive leftist. He's a massive supporter of multiculturalism, an opponent of racial discrimination, supporter of gay marriage, and one of the leading architects of the Aboriginal voice. And so it really is indicative of Jewish power and how it gets exercised in the host country, that they come into our country and they want to leverage their influence in our country to provide maximum support to their conservative ethno-state. So that
when you say
they're able to
when you say he's one of the main architects behind the Aboriginal voice to Parliament, do you mean he wrote the bill or contributed to writing that bill?
I don't think he wrote the bill, but his law firm. I mean, we'll get into some of the details, but he played a massive role in the installation of Julia Gillard when she overthrew Rudd, when she challenged Rudd for the leadership and became prime minister, back 13 years ago, or whatever it was, 12 years ago. And what kind of pissed him off about Rudd wasn't pro-Israel enough. Basically, what had happened was there was the Mossad, which is like the Israeli intelligence. They had basically assassinated someone in some Arab country when their agents used Australian passports. And this really upset the Australian government because they'd previously used Australian passports for some other espionage incident back in 2003, which is undisclosed. And basically ASIO said, we'll let that one slide, but don't do it again. And they did it again. This infuriated Rudd, in addition to, at the time, Israel had engaged in some particularly egregious atrocities towards the Palestinians. And so basically the Rudd government criticized Israel, and this infuriated Liebler, and then Liebler basically plotted and used his influence to help support Gillard, challenging Rudd and kind of grabbing the Labour leadership off him. And Gillard was a massively pro-Israel figure who had lots of ties to Liebler and to Zionist organizations in general. And Gillard appointed him the chair of the Reconciliation Australia. Actually, but I think he was actually appointed that originally by John Howard. Again, very close and strong relationship with John Howard. I mean, like literally every prime minister since Bob Hawke has had close personal relationship with this guy. And anyway, so he's just basically been involved in the background of the kind of lobbying and kind of legal advisory background that prefigures The Voice for a long time. I mean, this is a long time coming. It wasn't like The Voice; they just thought of it last year. It's the outcome of a long-term process that has been underway since the Howard government in the early 2000s.
Are there any Aboriginal people involved